World War Z, Chapter 4, The Amazonian Rainforest, read by Narayanan. I arrived blindfolded, so as to not reveal my host's location. Outsiders call them Yaomami, the fierce people, and it is unknown whether this supposed warlike nature or the fact that their new village hangs suspended from the tallest trees is what allowed them to weather the crisis as well, if not better, than even the most industrialized nation. It was not clear whether Fernando Oliveira, the emaciated, drug-addicted white man from the edge of the world, is their guest, mascot, or prisoner. I was still a doctor. At least that's what I was telling myself. Yeah, I was rich. I'm getting richer all the time. But at least my success came from performing necessary medical procedures. I wasn't just slicing and dicing little teenage bimbos' noses or sewing Sudanese pintos onto she-boy pop divas. I was still a doctor. I was still helping people. And if it was so immoral to the self-righteous, hypocritical North, why did their citizens keep coming? The package arrived from the airport an hour before the patient, packed in ice in a plastic picnic cooler. Hearts are extremely rare, not like livers or skin tissue, and certainly not like kidneys, which, after the presumed consent law was passed, you could get from almost any hospital or morgue in the country. Was it tested? Tested for what? In order to test for something, you've got to know what you're looking for. We didn't know about the walking plague then. We were concerned with conventional ailments, hepatitis, HIV, AIDS, and we didn't even have time to test for those. Why is that? Because the flight had taken so damn long. Organs can't be kept on ice forever. We were already pushing our luck with this one. Where'd it come from? China, most likely. My brokerator operated out of Macau. We trusted him. His record was solid. When he assured us that the package was clean, I took him at his word. I had to. He knew the risks involved. Hell, so did I. So did the patient, Herr Muller. In addition to his conventional heart ailments, was cursed with the extremely rare genetic defect of dextrocardia with situs inversus. His organs lay in the exact opposite position. The liver was on the left side, the heart entryways on the right, so on and so forth. You can kind of see the unique situation we're facing here. We couldn't have just transplanted a conventional heart and turned it backward. It just doesn't work that way. We needed another fresh heart from a donor, the exact same condition. Where else but China would we have that kind of luck? Was it luck? Political expediency. I told my broker what we needed, gave him the specifics, and sure enough, 3 weeks later, I received an email simply titled, "We have a match." So you performed the operation? I assisted Dr. Silva performing the actual procedure. He was a prestigious heart surgeon who worked on top cases at the Hospital Israelita Alberta Einstein in Sao Paulo. Arrogant bastard. I mean, even for a cardiologist, it killed my ego to have to work with. That fucking prick treated me just like I was a first-year resident. But what was I going to do? Herr Muller needed a new heart, and my beach house needed a new herbal jacuzzi. Herr Muller never came out of the anesthesia. He lay in the recovery room barely minutes after closing. His symptoms began to appear. His temperature, pulse rate, oxygen saturation. I was worried, and it must have tickled my more experienced colleague. He told me that it was either a common reaction to the immunosuppressant medication or the simple expected complications of an overweight, unhealthy, 67-year-old man who had just gone through one of the most traumatic procedures in modern medicine. I'm surprised he didn't pat me on the head, the prick. He told me to go home, take a shower, get some sleep, maybe call a girl or two and relax. He'd stay and watch him and call me if there was any change. Oliveira, at this point, he purses his lips angrily and chews another wad of this mysterious leaf that's at his side. So what was I supposed to think? Maybe it was the drugs, the OTK3, or maybe I was just being a warrior. I mean, this was my first heart transplant, so what the hell did I know? Still, it bothered me so much that the last thing I wanted to do was sleep, so I did what any good doctor would do when his patient is suffering. I hit the town. I danced, I drank. I had scandalously indecent things done to me by who knows what or for what reason. I wasn't even sure it was my phone vibrating the first couple of times. It must have taken at least an hour before I finally picked up. Grazilia, my receptionist, was in a real state. She told me that Herr Muller had slipped into a coma about an hour before. I was in my car before she could finish the damn sentence. It was a 30-minute drive back to the clinic, and I cursed both Sylvia and myself every second of the way. So I did have reason to be concerned. So I was right. Ego, you could say, even though to be right meant dire consequences for me as well, I still relished tarnishing the invincible Sylvia's reputation. I arrived to find Grazia trying to comfort a hysterical Rosie. One of my nurses, poor girl, was inconsolable. I gave her a good one across the cheek. That seemed to calm her down. I asked her, "What's going on? Why are these spots of blood on her uniform? Where's Dr. Silva? Why were some of the patients out of their goddamn rooms? And what the hell is going on with the banging noises?" She told me that Herr Muller had flatlined. Suddenly, unexpectedly, she explained that, he'd been trying to revive him. And then Herr Muller had opened his eyes and bitten Dr. Silva on the hand. The two of them struggled. Rosie tried to help, but was almost bitten herself. She left Silva, ran from the room, and locked the door behind her. I almost had to laugh at that. It sounded so ridiculous. Maybe Superman had slipped up, misdiagnosed him, as if that were possible. Maybe just risen from the bed and in a stupor tried to grab onto Dr. Silva and steady himself. Come on, there has to be a reasonable explanation, right? And yet, there was blood on her damn uniform and muffled noises from Herr Muller's room. So I went back to the car for my gun, more to calm myself than for anyone else. "You carried a gun?" "Dude, I lived in Rio. What do you think I carried, my Pinto?" I came back to Herr Muller's room. I knocked several times. I heard nothing. I whispered his and Sylvia's names. Nothing. I noticed blood seeping out from underneath the door. I entered and found it covering the floor. Silva was just lying in the far corner, Muller crouching over him with his fat, pale, hairy back to me. Ugh. I can't remember how the hell I got his attention. Whether I called his name, uttered a swear word, just did something like stand there. I don't know. Muller turned around to me, bits of bloody meat just falling from this dude's open mouth. I saw his steel sutures had been partially pried open and a thick black gelatinous fluid oozed from the incision. He got shakily to his feet, lumbering slowly towards me. That's when I raised my pistol, aiming it at his new heart. It was a Desert Eagle. Israeli, large, showy, which is exactly why I chose it. I'd never fired it before. Thank fucking God. I wasn't ready for the recoil. The round went wild, literally blowing his head off. Luckily, that's all. This lucky fool standing there with a smoking gun and a stream of warm urine running down my leg. Now it was my turn to get slapped several times by Grazilia before I came to my senses, and that's when I telephoned the police. Were you arrested? Are you fucking crazy? These were my partners. How do you think I was able to get my homegrown organs? How do you think I was able to take care of this mess? They're very good at that. They helped explain to my other patients that a homicidal maniac had broken into the clinic and killed both Herr Muller and Dr. Silva. They also made sure that none of the staff said anything to contradict this story. What about the bodies? They listed Silva as the victim of a probable carjacking. I don't know where they put his body, maybe some sort of ghetto side street in the city of God, a drug score gone bad just to give the story more credibility. I hope they just burned him or buried him real deep. Do you think I don't know. His brain was intact when he died. If he wasn't in a body bag? If the ground was soft enough? How long would it take to dig out? Right now, at this point, takes another leaf, starts chewing it. He offered me one. I said no thank you. And Mr. Muller? No explanation. Not to his widow, not to the Australian embassy, just another kidnapped tourist who'd been careless in a dangerous town. I don't know if Frau Muller ever believed that story or if she ever tried to investigate it further. She probably never realized how damn lucky she was. Why was she lucky? Are you serious? What if he hadn't reanimated in my clinic? What if he'd managed to make it all the way home? Is that possible? Of course it is. Think about it. Because the infection started in the heart, the virus had direct access to his circulatory system, so it probably reached his brain seconds after it was implanted. Now, you take another organ, liver, kidney, or even a section of grafted skin, that's going to take a lot longer, especially if the virus is only present in small amounts. But the donor doesn't have to be fully reanimated. What if he's just newly infected? The organ may not even be completely saturated. It might only have an infinitesimal trace. But you put that organ in another body, it might take days, weeks, before it eventually works its way into the bloodstream. By that point, the patient might as well be on his way to recovery, happy and healthy, living a regular life. But whoever's removing the organ, they may not even know what they're dealing with. I didn't. These were the very early stages when nobody knew anything yet. Even if they did know, like the elements in the Chinese army, you want to talk about immoral. Years before the outbreak, they'd been making millions on organs from executed political prisoners. You think something like a little virus is going to make them stop sucking on that golden tit? But how is you remove the heart not long after the victims died? Well, maybe even while he is alive. They used to do that, remove living organs to ensure their freshness, pack it nice, put it on a plane for Rio. China used to be the largest exporter of human organs on the world market. Who knows how many infected corneas, pituitary glands, mother of God. Who knows how many infected kidneys they pumped into the global market. And that's just the fucking organs. You want to talk about donated eggs from political prisoners, the sperm, the blood. You think immigration was the only way to get the infection to sweep the entire planet? Not all the initial outbreaks were Chinese nationals. Can you explain the stories of people suddenly dying from unexpected causes and then reanimating without ever having been bitten? Why did so many illegal outbreaks begin in hospitals? Chinese immigrants weren't going to the hospitals. Do you know how many thousands of people got illegal organ transplants in the early years leading up to the Great Panic? I mean, even if 10% of them were infected. No, 1%. Do you have any proof of this? No. But that doesn't mean it didn't happen. When I think about how many transplants I performed, all of those patients from Europe, the Arab world, even your self-righteous United States, few of you Yankees asked where your new kidney or pancreas was coming from, be it a slum kid from the city of God or some unlucky child in a Chinese political prison. You didn't know? You didn't care. You just signed your traveler's checks, went under the knife, and then went home to Miami, New York, wherever. Did you ever try to track these patients down? Warn them? Fuck no, I didn't. I was trying to recover from a scandal, rebuild my reputation, my client base, and my bank account. I wanted to forget that had ever happened, not investigate it further. By the time I realized there was danger, it was scratching at my front door.